Plumbers don't wear ties. You're still accomplishing that same kind of like, the graphics are these real people. They are not pixels, it's real people acting out a scene.
A game that endeavors to use motion picture footage to tell video game stories and integrate into gameplay directly as opposed to simple cinematics.
To me, at the basest core, I feel like a full motion video game is something that gives me control over something that feels like it could have been a movie or a television show.
The video game industry hasn't always been something that's huge or taken seriously, and I think especially in this kind of like early 90s period, it was a time when people were like, well, what is serious? What is real entertainment? And the answer was Hollywood. So what if we just made video games like Hollywood? Then it'll be serious. Then it'll be like the real deal.
How can we display more advanced graphics than could realistically be done in real time? That was the idea.
Dragon's Lair, Mach 3, games like that, I saw that they were beautiful, but I also instantly recognized there was something different about them. And I was also really in, at a young age, to movies and was aware of the existence of Laserdisc. So how these games worked was not really a mystery to my little kid. Clips was kind of a strange thing back then, but my head could wrap around it. I watched Dragon's Lair on demo mode over and over, and I was like, I get it. It's the same thing every time. Okay, they're just switching around the order.
It's limited in the sense that, I mean, you can only do as much as you filmed. So you don't get the full sense of exploration that you get out of a game that's completely interactive. You know, you're basically funneled down a director's path in almost the same way a movie would, but then you have these branching paths that will allow you to see other takes that the director has come up with. So it's not as experimental or freeform as regular games would be. It's more guided, and I feel like that's a limitation of it. But I also feel like that opens up the game in terms of its accessibility.
Everyone's really kind of on a level playing field. Whether you're deeply into games or whether you're just, you know, someone's uncle, like my uncle, who had some games like that, like Mad Dog McCree on the computer.
Especially in the PC space, developers and publishers were always looking at how can we expand this out? How can we get dad playing video games and mom playing video games? Or, you know, anybody really. And there was many different types of genres and types of games, and I think FMV is just one of those things because it was usually not that complex. And it was designed to be like, hey, you like watching movies? How about you play one?
They called it Sillywood, the Silicon Valley and Hollywood coming together. Like, what if you could just be in a movie? What if it was a movie that you could play?
That's what I love about this era, because it was so experimental, right? Like, nobody knew. Like, this end goal of just getting people onto your screen, just seeing full color, or even just 256 colors representing people on a computer. That was nuts. Heck, even just still frames, right? Just a still picture. It sounds silly, but honestly, for that period, that was not a trivial thing to do on these machines, right? So all of this stuff was kind of coming together, and it just, you know, it created the FMV genre.
When you had CD-based consoles, at least that early, this was like the only type of game that you couldn't get on a cartridge.
So FMV was really a chance for people to say, look, we have all this space. Let's really put it to use with something you can't do in any other format. And FMV, you know, while it wasn't always great in terms of gameplay, it made use of the potential of that medium in a way that traditional games really couldn't.
FMV on consoles was the realization of that dream. The problem was it was a very clunky realization. It was a very limited realization. Some of that had to do with budgets.
You're kind of limited by the logistics and the realities of the actual cost of creating these things, especially if you're filming real actors and real sets.
The reality of it was that a lot of these games just weren't actually very fun. So if video games aren't fun and the production values aren't Hollywood level, then you just are kind of pushing buttons to a bad movie, which is not really what I think anyone had in mind.
You know, once you've gotten the entire story, then there's nothing else. And that's one of the good things about Night Trap is that you can play through it several times and always see like some new stuff.
Night Trap is so honest about what it is that it's one of the best.
They took the concept of using security cameras and they plugged it into the game itself. where you would actually be watching something that happens that you don't have direct control over. You just had control over the feeds.
Developers, as often happens, saw an example of success in, say, Seventh Guest, in Night Trap, and these kinds of games that do use FMV in an interesting way, but kind of only got the video part of it, and therefore we quickly go into a realm of kind of very loose, like quick time based video gaming. And so the games themselves became more limited in its genre than it actually needed to be.
It's good to go back and reevaluate and kind of understand what those games were about and what they could be, what people tried to make of them. Even though we have so many more genres of games now and so much more technology to do this in a full 3D space, I think there's still the sense of that realism and the fact that our eyes connect with these characters in a different way, the fact that we know they're real. I think this can be used effectively still to this day.